All right. Hello, everybody. Today's date is April 11th, 2022. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority being conducted in Albany and live streamed on the authority's YouTube channel. Present today are Chairman Bradley by telephone. Chairman, if you could say something for us.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Fan and Commissioner Ford, who are participating remotely via WebEx. Staff that are also participating, General Counsel Meyerhoff, remotely via WebEx, Deputy Commissioner of Licensing Donahue, and myself, Secretary to the Authority Roper in the Albany office. We have one item on today's calendar. That's agenda number 00652D. It's a proposed advisory concerning the sale of wine and liquor to go by on-premises retail licensees. Everyone had a chance to review it.
Is anyone presenting or is there? I guess I just have a couple of questions because obviously we have the authority to clarify whatever language or add language to make it possible for us to enforce this. Is this just a start, or are there going to be a, sort of a public comment period for industry to further, give us input on what they see
So,
as the, places where they can
Commissioner
have
Fan,
input?
Commissioner Fan, I don't know whether you actually are on social media, so you might not even be aware of it, but we've received a lot of input, and a lot of it was due to our request. In response to our request, which was made on social media, we received dozens of comments that we read, and we appreciate the public as well as the industry's input. Believe it or not, most wish there weren't a food requirement at all, or that it should be less than substantial. Some wish there weren't an SLA at all. The law, as you know and the rest of us know, requires that there be an SLA and that there be a substantial food requirement. However, the word substantial
no,
is
I'm not commenting about this particular item. I'm talking about generally the whole bill.
I got it. Let me just finish though. So the word substantial is a legislative indication that the food that accompanies a drink order cannot be just any food item. It has to have substance. For that reason, we're offering this advisory that uses terms that are familiar in the ABC law that hopefully are familiar to our licensees as well, and therefore should give them some guidance. Now, that doesn't mean that in the future this cannot be adjusted, but the plan right now is this is what they're going to start out with. This is what our guidance is as to what substantial food is, as interpreted by the board, based on the statute that was recently passed in the budget.
Yes, we're also defining or interpreting the word bottle, which, as written in the statute, could mean just the glass itself that surrounds wine or liquor. Obviously, that's it can't be what was intended, so we're trying to define that as well.
So this is basically kind of picking up where the standards were in place for COVID for substantial food. Would that be a fair assessment to say it's modeled after that requirement?
Well, yes and no. There were actually. Go ahead, Chairman.
I think that's fair, with a little different, as Gary said. We were forced because of the statute to define what the original container is and bottle based on what's written in the statute.
Okay. Thank you.
There were actually two separate kind of food requirement issues during the pandemic. One was the same issue we have here, which is the executive orders that permitted on-premises licensees to sell alcohol to go as long as it accompanied food. There was also another food requirement we had when restaurants that had been restricted from serving on premises were allowed to reopen. And there was an executive order that had a food requirement that was designed to serve the purpose of limiting kind of standing and drinking establishments as opposed to people being seated and eating. So this standard that you're looking at now is similar to the first one, not the second one. And that was a piece of guidance we had in place for food delivery that was never really challenged or disputed. It was not an issue. So we took the lead from that, and that language actually does come from other statutory language in the ABCL.
Thank you. So this makes it clear that,
And as you pointed out, Commissioner Fan, I don't believe this is, after businesses got used to this standard, the problems that we had initially in enforcement really ceased once everyone got the hang of it. So hopefully they can just, get back on board and go right to the whatever processes they were doing during the COVID pandemic, or when we were at the height of the COVID pandemic and this was in place. And we won't have any problems once they, if they go back to what they were doing before.
Do the members have any other questions or comments?
so in other words, you just can't go in and say, I'll have 2 margaritas to go. You have to say, I'll order something off of your menu to go with it. That's basically the idea.
Yeah, Gary, do you want to just summarize the standards so those, not just we get it, but the people that are listening get it as well?
Gary, I think you're either muted or.
Yeah, I'm having some computer issues too. Hold on one second. So yes, I will. I'll be happy to. Bear with me one moment. Yeah, it's just so, I'm sorry, for those who are watching and don't have what the members have in front of them there are 2 terms in the new statute section, which is ABCL 106 sub 2A, which contains a list of restrictions and conditions associated with the new privilege for those with on-premises service privileges to serve alcohol and, wine and liquor, either for takeout or for delivery. One is the substantial food item, which the proposed advisory would define as sandwiches, soups, or other foods, whether fresh, processed, pre-cooked, or frozen. And the other foods is really foods that are similar in quality or substance to sandwiches and soups. And then we have some examples of what is and what isn't, based on prior guidance and lessons from this being in force. There's also a comment that one of the things we saw during the pandemic was that some operators, to pay kind of tacit attention to a food requirement, would simply charge $1 or $2 more for an item of alcohol to go, and say that that was for the purpose of purchase of food, but no real food had been ordered or provided. And that, we view as, in the guidance as drafted, would be a violation of the law, as the spirit of the law is that this is supposed to accompany food, not just be some kind of economic issue. The other definition is bottle of wine and liquor, which are prohibited under the delivery permissions. And we're defining bottle to mean wine or liquor that the retailer purchases from a wholesaler that's in a bottle, a box, a can, or a similar container. So it's not to just be limited to what happens to be delivered in a bottle, as opposed to some other container. And there's also a comment about restricting someone from getting around that restriction by just taking wine out of the original bottle and put it into another bottle and selling it, which would obviously violate the spirit of what was intended. Well, at least purportedly violate the spirit of what was intended, subject to your vote, of course.
So what about for alcoholic beverages that now comes in a cup that is sort of sealed that would resemble what we're trying to say is allowable? So they have to unseal that in order to, how would that work? I'm just asking. Like, how does that?
The answer,
how's that
the answer,
contemplated under this?
the answer is if it would come to a retailer in a can, it would be restricted. So
What if it comes in a cup that is sealed? Like the machines that in theory looks exactly like what we're saying would be legal to sell.
well, it wouldn't come in a cup that was sealed if it came from a wholesaler. If a retailer was purchasing it from a wholesaler, purchasing
I
it
know,
from
but
a
I'm just
wholesaler.
saying that now they're making products that kind of look like, and I mean, this is a thing that we're basically, and the market is going to shift towards that, right? Like, you know, people are different. I'm just saying that that's the anticipation of how things will change. So I'm just asking if that happened, is the intention of this clarification, are we saying that you will have to unseal those cups or bottles or whatever and pour it into some other generic service, apparatus? I'm not, I'm just saying, is that the intent of what we're saying?
No, the intent of what we're saying is that would still be restricted. If
Okay.
if it's a product that's coming from a wholesaler to a retailer in a bottle or some other container,
Mhm.
that is what the law is restricting from being sold by on-premises licensees.
Directly, right.
So just putting it into another container, the exact volume and contents of something that was sold as a bottle or a box of wine or a can of something could not be sold to go by an on-premises retailer.
Okay.
Look, as the market adjusts in a way that causes the state liquor authority to want to revisit the way in which this is defined, nothing will prevent that from happening. This is the
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad Chairman said that this is just the beginning of a process of understanding how this, and obviously we need something now, and using existing familiar language makes sense to me. So thank you for putting this forward, because obviously we need to do this. So, yeah, that's fine. We can take other public comments as we go.
Ready to vote? On adopting the advisory, Commissioner Fan,
Yes, as drafted, thank you. Voting affirmatively to adopt the advisory to clarify the definition of substantial food under the new budget elements that concern the SLA laws, and also the definition of bottle as it's drafted in the advisory.
Commissioner Ford,
I also vote to approve and adopt the advisory as so written.
and Chairman Bradley.
I vote to approve the advisory as well.
All right, so I have nothing else on today's agenda. Chairman, do
Right.
you have anything else?
When does it take effect and when will it go out?
Right now, today.
Okay. And the advisory will be posted on our website and everything today?
Yes, as well as I believe, Gary, am I correct in saying we'll be frequently asked questions, and as we get more, we will add to those as well with answers?
That's the plan, yeah. We're going public with this immediately.
Awesome.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.